Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing? Hope you're well. So, I wanted to jump on here and talk about doing the work. And what I mean about doing the work is doing the inner work, and primarily that entails being with our inner child. And I'm inspired to talk about it today because life is so interesting. Sometimes things kind of come in and merge all at the same time, and you have this point of reflection. And when I think just being human in general, but especially when you're wanting to work on yourself, it's really important to have moments of reflection of like where have I come from and where am I at now? Because it's really easy to just keep on thinking we have to continue to do more work, and we're not even really acknowledging how far we've come along the way. So I do a lot of inner child work with clients, and I've been doing it for more than a decade, but I would say I always try to walk my talk as best as possible, and much of what I feel like I can offer is what I've experienced myself. And I always believe the saying, I don't know if it's a saying, it's what I say, that our deepest wounds become our greatest gifts. So I was talking with one of my best friends whom, we've known each other for more than a decade. And this year, the whole world is going through a massive transformation. And then I would say on a personal level, we were talking about how, we've also transformed a lot. And to be honest, I hope that I'm forever growing and evolving. But certain experiences and just the world in general act as a catalyst for growth. They can act as a greater catalyst for growth than in other times. And like I said, I feel like as a collective, we're all undergoing a huge, massive transformation. But we were laughing, going like, oh my God, when does the work end? Like, does it ever end? Because it feels like a bottomless pit where you're just going through layer after layer after layer. It's like the layers of the onion peeling away. And the last several, I would say 2.5 to 3 years have been a hugely transformational time. And I think coming into my 40s is a naturally huge transition and almost feels like a rite of passage. And what I've kind of gone through in my life these last 2 to 3 years has been like a rite of passage. I can feel like I'm transitioning not only into a different part of my life, but embodying more of myself. And I would say that's what I really appreciate about getting older, is like you settle in more, you know how to come home more easily. And because of that, there's a greater bond with yourself. That's what I'm experiencing. So, but we were laughing, going like, just when does this shit end? Like, it's the bottomless freaking pit of just more layers to work through. And last year, I remember really I was going through a transition within myself, this is another best friend, was saying, Corinne, you're pulling the thorn out. You're pulling the thorn out of the wound. And I remember there was a weekend where I was really processing something, and it was so flippin' painful. Like, I could really feel it. And I remember just having the experience of like, just be with it, because our culture is so like, go to the distraction, take the pill, watch the television show, get on Instagram. Distraction is like the name of the game, where actually everything that we're trying to distract ourselves from is what needs our attention, is what needs our loving attention. And the relief that we're trying to get through distraction, that relief only truly, profoundly comes when we stay with the pain. So the invitation for me is like, don't run away from the pain. Stay with it. Don't abandon my inner child. Don't abandon my wound. Like, stay with it and give it love and give it presence. And this is what I'm learning so profoundly is, I'll speak of it in my experience. My only job is to be as present and open-hearted with my experience as I possibly can. And the rest is like life, whatever you want to say, some kind of greater guidance is moving us along, right? But all I can commit to, or what my responsibility is to stay as present as possible with it. So that was the practice, is like, stay, don't run away, stay with it, feel it, be with it, allow it to move through you. And let the layers fall back, right? And get closer to yourself because of that. So more recently, I had an experience that 10 years ago would have triggered the shit out of me. And I would have gone really into my story and into my wound and into my suffering and into all of that. And I've recognized that I've been able to show up with all the various things that are going on in the world, you know, the practical things, the emotional things, the existential things, all of it. And I've been able to be really calm. And I realized that it's because my inner child isn't freaking out anymore. She's not freaking out because she knows now, because I've done it enough, that I've stayed. I'm not going anywhere. I've proven to her that I'm here for her and that I love her and I accept her and I'm here to protect her and take care of her and just be present to her, for her, with her. And so, you know, I just was realizing like, wow, the calmness comes when that part isn't going, you know, the fear that she's going to be alone, she's going to be abandoned, she's going to be rejected, she's going to, whatever the story is of our inner child, the wound of our inner child is, that's not being played out anymore. So instead, what can happen is that the emotion that arises in the moment that the adult is feeling gets to be felt, gets to be honored. It's not about not feeling that, but it's about not attaching it to a story any longer. And what it's shown me is that allows me to be so present with my experience and actually so damn trusting of it. Trusting of life, trusting of myself, trusting of what's happening. Because the thing is we have this like wonderful, beautiful, crazy, deluded illusion that we're in control. And I don't mean to say that we're like, you know, floundering around and we have zero control of our life, because I don't agree with that either. What I mean by that is our sense of control is like a grip. It's like when we're trying to hold on to something so tightly and being like, I'm going to force it to be some way. I'm going to force that person. Even if we're not consciously thinking of that, it is a sense of like, I'm trying to control another person's response. I'm trying to control the world and the environment around me. And the truth is we don't have any control. We don't have any control over anybody else, their reaction, their response, their feelings, their desires, their fears. We have zero control of it. The only thing we have control over is our response and how we show up in life. The way that I would change the language is to say, control often comes from a feeling of not being safe. And safety to me is when I am not abandoning myself. I'm staying with myself. I'm staying with my inner child. I'm staying with my experience. And I'm not trying to control it because I'm not coming from a place of fear. I'm coming from a place of trust. Like, I'm here. I've got myself. I'm trusting that life has me. That there, you know, life is happening through me. It's not happening to me. I'm not the victim of life. I'm engaging with it. I'm a co-creator. I'm collaborating with life. And looking at it from that perspective is much more, not only empowering, but just much more peaceful, because it's like, I've used the term a lot, like the tail is wagging the dog. We're no longer the tail. We recognize that it's like, oh, I'm the dog and I get to wag the tail, you know, or I'm not at the mercy of something else kind of whacking me and whipping me around. So I had this point of reflection of like, wow, I've done the work. And of course I still have more to do and there's more growth, but I've done enough of the work to realize I'm okay. I feel things. I feel the tenderness and the vulnerability of being human and having a heart and having emotions and having things in the world, in my environment, people affect me. But I'm no longer in my story that only created suffering for me. That's what I'm observing right now. And that's hugely profound. And so when people ask me so often in my work, does this work? Does it ever get better? like I'm doing all this work and it feels like for nothing, I can say to you firsthand, it's not for nothing. It takes work, it takes consistency, it takes time, but it's not for nothing. And it doesn't mean that you get to a point where you're all of a sudden like, wow, I'm happy, nothing affects me, I'm not scared, because that's bullshit. I'm sorry, I'm going to put it that way. We're human and we're having a human experience, and to be human and to have a human experience it means you're going to feel stuff. You're going to feel love and joy and pain and loss and confusion and clarity, everything, the duality, the whole spectrum, the paradox. But it's always about, and how do we relate to ourselves in the midst of it? That's what the work is all about, is that we don't abandon ourselves, but we continue to show up, and we're holding our experience along with what is around us that is holding and guiding us. And believe you me, as I've shared before, I have so many moments where I'm like, to the universe. And then I realize it's not fighting against me, I'm fighting against it. So I just want to drop the seed that like it's worth doing the inner work, because the freedom, the happiness, the peace that we're looking for only comes from the inside out. It's never going to come from the outside in. It can be supported eventually by the outside, but the outside will never change until the internal changes. And when you can see that after you've done the work and you've walked through the brambles and you've bled and you've crumbled and you've died, and you see that on the other side of that there's life, and you see that the life always comes from within you. And yes, it takes courage, and yes, it's going to be painful, and it's going to be fucking scary sometimes, but the liberation, the freedom, the comfort, the true comfort, not just the patch that like comforts us for a second, that soothes, that numbs, that pretends. It's like this deep inner peace that's like, it's okay. Like no matter what, there can be a shitstorm outside, but inside it's like, it's okay. And it's not because I'm pretending to be okay. Like I'm sad, it's okay. I'm hurting, it's okay. I'm confused, it's okay. Whatever it is, it's all okay. And that's what I'm recognizing is just the most beautiful aspect of doing this work, and why it's so profound and so, in my mind, so important to do. If we're truly seeking liberation, and I don't use the word happiness, because happiness to me is the end equation of self-acceptance, peace within oneself, that feeling of inner comfort. The end result of that is happiness. But if we just go for happiness, happiness is just like a pretty facade, right? Happiness is the result of inner peace. And inner peace comes through the acceptance of holding our entire humanity, human experience. And holding our entire human experience is simply the act of being present and not abandoning and not ignoring and not distracting. So I'm going to leave it with you to say the work is so worth it. It's hard sometimes, but it is so damn worth it. And take a moment, if you've been doing the work, to reflect back and see how far you've come. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Sending you love from afar. Thanks for listening. As always, take it or leave it, and I wish you well.